We're facing a cost of living crisis, as you know, and students and families have to pay the highest fees in the EU. Will you and your department, as a means of taking the pressure off students and their parents, reduce fees as part of a sustainable funding model for third-level education? I'm also conscious of the fact that they need help now, and I would call on you again to increase SUSI support for this academic year. But I also believe that reducing the looming cost of third-level fees coming down the line would be a welcome relief for many.
Thanks, Deputy Conway-Walsh. Well, this is something we agree on. I do believe we need to reduce the cost of education. I believe that very passionately, and I would argue that we've already taken a number of steps since this government came to office just under 2 years ago. I won't go through to them all in the time of this talk, but the first increase in the SUSI grants, I accept some of them don't take effect until September, but some of them have taken effect this year as well, as you'll know. Increases in the Student Assistance Fund, and you and I engage on this, and indeed the government will consider cost of living in the round at a Cabinet Committee later this week. But I am very conscious that when we talk about a sustainable funding model for higher education, that can't just be a model that is sustainable for the institutions. That's very important, of course it is. So I look at the issue of what does a sustainable model look like? And in my head, I think it has 3 parts. I think it looks at what is the level of investment that we need to put into higher education now and into the future to make sure that it can meet the needs of our society and some of the issues you and I were discussing earlier. How can it know that it's adequately and sustainably funded? The second issue, how can the grant system be completely overhauled? And we obviously have a SUSI review to go alongside that. And then the third is the cost of education. And I do believe we need to do work in relation to the registration fee. So you'll know that the factual answer as of now is that I updated the Cabinet Committee, I think in the month of December. I'm engaging bilaterally with my colleague, the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform. Myself and Minister Collins shortly will bring forward proposals in terms of what that sustainable funding model looks like. We have ruled out student loans. I want to say that again. I think that's very important. I don't think it works. I think it's a failed model. Students shouldn't be leaving college heavily indebted and paying back the government in terms of loans at a time when they might well want to be saving for other things in their life in terms of progression as well. We have made a number of changes to the SUSI scheme. You'll know we've already taken changes that have taken effect, including in relation to postgraduate students as well. There are more to come in September. We did announce an increase in the Student Assistance Fund last week as well, and we continue to keep all of these issues under review. But let me be clear, I want to see the cost of education go in a downward direction as we bring forward this sustainable funding model.
Yeah, Minister, I really think we need to be conscious at this stage of families that are really struggling, and also of students who are, because they cannot get accommodation, even at a hugely high price, that they are driving long distances, and the extra cost that is putting in on students at this particular time. But also it's time for a new accommodation strategy, because the prices and the cost of accommodation is prohibiting students for participating in the colleges and going to the colleges that they want to go to. And we must do everything we possibly can to bring higher education within reach of everybody. And that is why I am really seeking a commitment from yourself that fees will be reduced, but also in terms of SUSI. And I really do hope that the Cabinet do decide on your recommendation to bring forward some of those reliefs there to take the pressure off students and of parents.
I thank the Deputy for the points that she's raised and the constructive manner in which she makes them. I suppose it is important to say, and I do always say this, particularly when I go into schools, because sometimes I think students, when they hear about the cost of education, can perhaps not be aware of the fact that there are existing supports available, and that is worth saying whilst trying to improve them. So it is important to say on the record of this House that over 65,000 students either pay no tuition fee, and not only do they not pay the highest fee in Europe, they pay no tuition fee or a very significantly reduced rate of fees. And these costs are covered by my department through the SUSI scheme. And last year we allocated €190 million to meet those fees to help the most students the most in need in terms of targeted interventions. We have brought about a number of changes to the SUSI scheme. I accept that they come in the new academic year largely in relation to the first increase in quite a number of years to the grant for everybody, a very significant reduce in the adjacency rate. So more students will qualify for the higher grant, and also an income threshold increase, so more students will qualify than before. We do need to continue to take many actions to reduce the cost of education, and I do believe on all parts of this island we need to reduce the cost of attending college. Yes, we have a student contribution fee in this jurisdiction of €3,000. I'd like that to go down. We have a tuition fee in Northern Ireland of €5,434. So the only reason you can say the highest fees in Europe is because sadly Northern Ireland isn't in the European Union. So I hope you'll join with me in taking an all-island approach to wanting to reduce fees, because I was up in Northern Ireland and the students aren't very happy with you up there at all.
Minister, you concentrate on the students down here.
Well, surely you'd like the government to take an all-island approach. Commitments under the Good Friday Agreement that I have to fulfil as a government minister.
The difference between Sinn Féin and yourselves is that we actually listen to students. So we listen to what students want, and you know that the only reason that the fees in the north aren't the 9,250 as they are in England is because Sinn Féin are in government in the north as well. So you know your twist and your play of words isn't fooling anybody.
That's an extraordinary answer.
No, it isn't. It's a truthful answer. I want fees to be reduced here. I want fees to be not the highest fees in the EU. That is not a label that we want in this state, and we must work together to make sure that that's reduced. And I know you say some people don't pay fees. Absolutely, yes, a lot of people don't. But you see the people who are working day and night, and you see the people that are excluded and are locked out and aren't entitled to anything, that are just above the thresholds. We need to help those students out. We need to give those students and those families the opportunities that they deserve as well. And we don't need to punish them for going out to work and for earning a very modest income that then excludes them from any help. Thank you.
I'm sure the Deputy didn't mean it, but I particularly presume the Sinn Féin party is very much aware of my commitments as under the Good Friday Agreement as a member of the Irish Government to have an active interest indeed in many things in relation to Northern Ireland. And you're going to be asking me in the HEA legislation to take an all-island approach, and I will and I do. And that's why I visited Queen's University, it's why I visited Ulster University, and it's why we're going to deliver on our commitments to students in the North. It's why we also, by the way, made sure that when sadly Northern Ireland and Britain left the European Union, we continued to make sure that students there could access Erasmus. So I have a very active interest and fulfil my commitments in relation to the North. If you're going to take credit for not putting the fees, I'd work on that one if I were you, because if you're taking credit for not putting them at £9,000 sterling, presumably you're happy at them at €5,434 and 57 cents. I mean, that's a lot. You know, my maths ain't great, but we charge in 3,000. I think that's too high. You're up in the north where you're in government. You're charging 5,434.
We don't have control of the
Shame
finances,
on you now.
Minister. We don't have control.
Shame.
You know
so if you're listening to the
control.
students, will you reduce the fees in the north, and will you do something about the A levels as well? And what
Speak
I'll do down here with Minister
Boris
Collins
Johnson.
and this government is we'll reduce the fees over time for students. We'll make sure we have a sustainable funding model, and we'll put more into Susie, and we'll work on an all-island basis to look after all the young people in this island.
Thank you, Minister.